I'm Sarah Mitchell, 28, and last Sunday's family dinner changed my life forever. The potatoes were still steaming when my father slammed his fist on the table. "Give up your room for the grandkids or get out of this house," he demanded, eyes cold as winter. 8 months after crawling back home, jobless and broke, my childhood bedroom had become the center of a family war. My mother's silence spoke volumes, while relatives stared at their plates. In that moment, I had to choose between security and dignity, between family ties and self-respect. Before I continue this story, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to make a decision that terrified and liberated you all at once. Life before moving back home had been everything I'd dreamed of while growing up in Millfield. Chicago's skyline had greeted me each morning from my apartment window, a constant reminder that I'd escaped my small-town destiny. My marketing career at Bluestream Digital had been thriving creative campaigns, client praise, and a salary that let me enjoy city restaurants and weekend getaways. Then came Black Friday, not the shopping kind. Our company lost 3 major accounts in 1 month. The CEO called an emergency meeting where phrases like economic downturn, necessary adjustments, and staff reductions bounced around the conference room. I kept thinking they wouldn't let me go. I'd just been promoted 6 months earlier. The HR manager's sympathetic smile as she handed me the severance package said otherwise. My studio apartment cost nearly $2,000 per month. Kevin, my boyfriend of 2 years, had just moved in, promising to split expenses. We'd celebrated with champagne and takeout, planning our future together. A week after I lost my job, he announced he wasn't emotionally equipped to handle a partner in career crisis. He moved out the same day, leaving half the rent and his share of the utilities unpaid. I tried everything to stay afloat, applying to over 60 jobs, from marketing director to coffee shop barista. Each morning began with optimism that evaporated with each rejection email. My savings, meant for a down payment on a condo, dwindled alarmingly fast. Student loan payments kept coming, uninterested in my employment status. When my checking account showed double digits, I finally made the call I'd been dreading. "Of course you can come home, sweetheart," Mom said, her voice warm with concern. "It's only temporary, until you get back on your feet." Dad got on the phone too. "Your room's exactly as you left it. Take as long as you need." The relief nearly made me cry. 3 months, I promised myself. Just 90 days to rebuild my career and finances, then back to independence. Returning to Millfield felt like stepping into a time machine. Main Street still had the same 5 restaurants. The movie theater still displayed posters weeks after films left major cities. My high school still had the same mascot sign, though the paint looked fresher. My childhood bedroom remained frozen in time debate team trophies, prom photos, and college acceptance letters still adorning the walls. The twin bed with its lavender comforter seemed to shrink as I placed my suitcases beside it. This room had once felt spacious. Now it was a reminder of how much I'd grown beyond this space. The first weeks weren't terrible. Mom made my favorite meals. Dad helped me update my resume. I set up a makeshift office in the corner of my bedroom and attacked job boards with renewed vigor. But as weeks stretched into months, the atmosphere shifted. "Did you see any interesting positions today?" Edith's became a daily interrogation rather than casual interest. The Simpson girl found a nice accounting job in Westridge, Mom would mention over dinner, her tone suggesting I wasn't trying hard enough. 5 months in, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. "We can't just let her stay forever," Dad whispered. "Tyler's kids need a place when they visit." "She'll find something soon," Mom replied, uncertainty coloring her words. My brother Tyler, 2 years younger yet somehow miles ahead in life's race, had married his high school sweetheart, Jessica. They lived 30 minutes away with their twin toddlers. While I languished in unemployment, Tyler had been promoted to regional manager at his insurance company. Each Sunday, they'd visit for family dinner. Jessica would bounce the twins on her lap while asking pointedly, "Still job hunting?" Her tone implied that perhaps I wasn't trying hard enough. As month 7 began, Tyler and Jessica started visiting more frequently. I'd catch them measuring my bedroom doorway or discussing color schemes for a play space when they thought I couldn't hear. One evening, I found renovation magazines on the coffee table, open to articles about converting spare rooms to child-friendly spaces. When I casually mentioned it, Mom changed the subject. The tension in the house became palpable. Dad stopped asking about my job search and instead made comments about adult children and empty nest syndrome. Mom started referring to my bedroom as the upstairs room rather than Sarah's room. 8 months after returning home, with only a few freelance projects bringing in minimal income, I felt like an unwelcome ghost in my childhood home. The walls that once sheltered me now seemed to be closing in, preparing to push me out before I was ready to stand on my own again. Sunday dinner had always been sacred in the Mitchell household. Mom's roast beef, Dad's carefully selected wine, cloth napkins instead of paper traditions that persisted regardless of life's changes. That particular Sunday seemed normal at first. Aunt Barbara and Uncle Jim joined us, along with Tyler, Jessica, and the twins. The conversation flowed comfortably around town gossip and sports predictions. I should have sensed something was off when Mom served dessert early. Tyler and Jessica exchanged glances as Dad cleared his throat, tapping his water glass with a spoon. "We have an announcement," he said, smiling at Tyler's family. "Linda and I have decided to convert the upstairs bedroom into a playroom for our grandchildren." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. "Which upstairs bedroom?" I asked, knowing perfectly well which one they meant. "Your old room, of course," Mom replied, avoiding my gaze. "The twins need a safe space when they visit, and you're hardly using it during the day anyway." The betrayal stung like a slap. "I'm living in that room," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Where exactly am I supposed to sleep?" Dad waved dismissively. "We can discuss details after dinner." "This isn't the time." "This seems exactly the time, since you brought it up in front of everyone," I interrupted, heat rising to my face. Aunt Barbara suddenly became intensely interested in her apple pie. Uncle Jim examined his watch as if he'd never seen it before. "Sarah, be reasonable," Tyler chimed in. "The kids are growing so fast, and they need space to play safely when we visit." Jessica nodded enthusiastically. "We visit at least twice a week now. It would be so helpful." "Maybe we should talk about this privately," I suggested, desperate to escape the public humiliation. "There's nothing to discuss privately," Dad stated firmly. "The decision's been made. We're starting renovations next week." The realization hit me like a thunderbolt. They'd planned this ambush, announcing it publicly so I couldn't argue without seeming unreasonable. "You could have mentioned this to me before announcing it to everyone," I said, my voice trembling. "We knew you'd overreact," Mom sighed. "You've always been so sensitive." "Sensitive?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "I'm living in that room. Where am I supposed to go?" Dad's patience visibly thinned. "You're 28 years old, Sarah. Most adults your age don't live with their parents. Most adults my age didn't lose their jobs in an economic downturn." "It's been 8 months," he countered. "Tyler lost his first job too, but he bounced back in 6 weeks." Tyler at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, studying his dessert plate intently. "I've applied to hundreds of positions," I defended myself. "The job market is brutal right now." "Perhaps you're being too picky," Jessica suggested sweetly. "The hardware store on Main is hiring cashiers." The conversation deteriorated rapidly after that. Dad's face reddened as he listed all the ways I'd failed to launch properly. Mom interjected with passive-aggressive comments about normal adults and independence milestones. Tyler occasionally tried to mediate but ultimately sided with our parents. "This is our house," Dad finally declared, voice rising to a near shout. "And we've made our decision. You can either give up the room or find somewhere else to live. It's that simple." The dining room fell silent, except for one of the twins babbling happily, oblivious to the tension. I stood up, napkin falling to the floor. "Excuse me," I managed to say before fleeing upstairs. Locking my bedroom door, I surveyed the space they wanted to take from me, my last vestige of security. Tears flowed freely as I curled up on my childhood bed, the same bed where I'd weathered teenage heartbreaks and college rejection letters. Now, at 28, I faced homelessness if I didn't comply. Through the floor, I could hear the dinner continuing. Occasional laughter drifted up as if my absence had relieved the tension rather than increased it. The casual resumption of their meal confirmed what I'd suspected: my presence had become an inconvenience, a problem to solve rather than a daughter to support. That night, I searched apartment listings on my phone until the battery died. Studio apartments in Millfield started at prices that would consume my entire freelance income. Roommate situations required security deposits I couldn't afford. The math was unforgiving. I simply couldn't afford to move out yet. Sleep evaded me as I stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to my ceiling from high school. The irony wasn't lost on me. The room my parents were so eager to repurpose was the same one they'd once lovingly decorated for their daughter, promising it would always be my safe haven. By morning, puffy-eyed and exhausted, I faced the harsh reality. I had nowhere to go, not enough money to leave, and a family that had essentially voted me out of my own home. Monday morning, I awoke to the smell of pancakes, Mom's traditional peace offering after family conflicts. Downstairs, both parents sat at the kitchen table, expressions contrite. "We should have discussed this with you privately first," Mom admitted, placing a stack of blueberry pancakes before me. "It wasn't fair to blindside you like that." Dad nodded, looking uncomfortable but conciliatory. "We got ahead of ourselves with the renovation plans. Your mother and I talked it over, and we realize you need more time." Relief washed over me. "Thank you. I promise I'm trying my hardest to find work." "We know, sweetheart," Mom patted my hand. "You've always been a hard worker." I seized the opportunity to propose a compromise. "What if I contributed rent while I'm staying here? I know my freelance work isn't bringing in much, but I could pay something toward household expenses." My parents exchanged glances. "That sounds reasonable," Dad conceded. "Say, 300 a month? I can manage that," I agreed, calculating quickly. It would leave me with barely enough for my phone bill and student loan payments, but it was worth financial hardship to maintain peace and shelter. "And perhaps we could postpone the renovation for another month or two," Mom suggested. "Give you time to find proper housing." The weight lifted from my shoulders. I spent the morning revising my resume again and sending out applications to every marketing position within a 50-mile radius. I even created a spreadsheet to track expenses, determined to show my parents I was serious about getting back on my feet. For 3 days, the house felt calm again. Dad helped me brainstorm potential companies to approach. Mom stopped making pointed comments about Tyler's success. I scheduled 2 promising job interviews and increased my freelance outreach efforts. Thursday afternoon, I returned from the library, where I'd been using the free Wi-Fi to save data on my phone plan. The house was oddly quiet when I entered, though both cars were in the driveway. Voices drifted from upstairs from my bedroom. I climbed the stairs silently, heart pounding. My bedroom door stood open. Inside, Dad held a measuring tape across my window while Mom jotted notes on a pad. Spread across my bed were catalog printouts featuring colorful children's furniture and toy storage systems. "The bookshelf would fit perfectly under the window," Mom was saying. "And we could put the play kitchen in that corner?" "We'll need to paint first," Dad replied. "Cover up those posters," she left. Tyler mentioned the twins like that sky blue color from the Pixar movie. I must have made a sound because they both turned suddenly. Guilt flashed across their faces, quickly replaced with defensiveness. "Sarah!" "We didn't hear you come in," Mom said, hastily gathering the catalogs. "Clearly," I replied, voice tight. "What happened to postponing the renovation?" Dad rolled up the measuring tape with deliberate movements. "We're just planning ahead. No harm in that." "Planning for what? The moment I walk out the door for good?" "Don't be dramatic," Mom sighed. "We're simply getting organized." I picked up one of the catalogs, the delivery date circled in red. "Next Tuesday." "You've already ordered furniture," I stated flatly. "That's not planning. That's proceeding regardless of our agreement." Their silence confirmed my suspicion. From downstairs, the front door opened, followed by the sound of Tyler's voice calling out and the twins' excited squeals. "You invited them over to discuss the renovation, didn't you?" I realized. "That's why you didn't expect me back yet." "Sarah," Dad began, his tone shifting to the one he used when explaining adult realities to me. "Sometimes tough love is necessary. You've become too comfortable here, and it's affecting your motivation. Comfortable? I echoed incredulously. I've been job hunting nonstop for 8 months. I just paid you rent 3 days ago. Mom at least had the grace to look ashamed. We were going to suggest you move your things to the basement. It's not ideal, but it would be temporary. The basement floods every spring, I reminded her, and it has no heating. We could put in a space heater, Dad offered, as if this solved everything. The sound of footsteps on the stairs preceded Tyler's appearance in the doorway, the twins clinging to his legs. Hey, we didn't know you'd be home, he said, surprise evident. Mom mentioned you had interviews today. They're tomorrow, I replied coldly, though I'm starting to think I should have scheduled them in another state. The realization that my entire family had been coordinating behind my back, planning my displacement while pretending to support me, hit with crushing force. I grabbed my purse and keys. I need some air, I muttered, brushing past them. Sarah, don't overreact, Mom called after me. We need to discuss this as a family. Seems like the family's already made its decision, I called back, hurrying down the stairs. Once in my car, the full betrayal washed over me. I drove aimlessly, eventually parking at the lake, where we'd had family picnics throughout my childhood. Rain began to patter on the windshield, matching the tears streaming down my face. I checked my bank account on my phone. $287.43 remaining after paying rent to my parents. Not enough for any security deposit, barely enough for a week in even the cheapest motel. My next freelance payment wouldn't arrive for another 10 days. Panic rose in my chest, constricting my breathing. For the first time in my adult life, I faced the very real possibility of homelessness. I couldn't afford housing, couldn't stay with family, and hadn't maintained close enough friendships in Millfield to have couch surfing options. As darkness fell, I realized I didn't want to go home, couldn't bear to face the family that had essentially voted me out of existence. I reclined my seat slightly and tried to get comfortable. Just for tonight, I told myself. I'll sleep in the car just for tonight. Morning light filtered through my car windows, revealing the uncomfortable reality of my situation. My neck ached from sleeping awkwardly against the door, and condensation had fogged all the windows. I used a fast food napkin from the glove compartment to wipe a clear spot on the windshield, watching the early morning dog walkers circle the lake. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Dad, and a text from Tyler asking where I was. I ignored them all, driving to the gas station to splash water on my face and brush my teeth in their bathroom. The attendant gave me a sympathetic look. Rough night? I nodded, avoiding eye contact. The shame of my situation burned worse than the physical discomfort. By noon, hunger forced me to return home. I'd hoped to slip in unnoticed, grab food, and leave again, but all 3 cars sat in the driveway, my parents' and Tyler's. A family intervention awaited. Where have you been? Mom cried the moment I walked in. We were worried sick. I nearly called the police. I slept in my car, I admitted, too exhausted for pretense. The room fell silent. Dad's expression shifted from anger to concern. That's extremely irresponsible, he finally said, though his tone lacked conviction. Is it? I countered. You're converting my room into a playroom, offering me an unheated basement as alternative accommodation, and giving me an ultimatum to leave. Where exactly did you expect me to go? We didn't mean for you to leave immediately, Mom insisted. The furniture delivery is scheduled for Tuesday, I reminded her. That's 5 days from now. Tyler cleared his throat from the living room doorway. Look, Sarah, no one wants you homeless. But you have to admit this situation isn't sustainable, and you need the space more than I need shelter. Is that it? That's not fair, Jessica interjected from beside him. The twins are growing fast, and your parents deserve to enjoy their grandchildren. In the room of their adult daughter who has nowhere else to go? Dad's patience visibly thinned. This isn't productive. Sarah, we need a decision by dinner tomorrow. Either accept the basement arrangement temporarily, or make other living arrangements. With what money? I asked, voice rising. You know my financial situation. Perhaps if you'd been more responsible with your savings in Chicago, Mom suggested. Or taken one of the retail positions available months ago. The implication that my situation was entirely my own fault ignited something inside me. I lost my job because the economy tanked. I lost my apartment because rent in Chicago is outrageous. I came home because you promised it was a safe place to rebuild. And now you're throwing me out because a playroom for children who visit twice a week is more important than your daughter's well-being. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't care anymore. The pretense of family support had been completely stripped away. Tyler stepped forward. Sarah, you're twisting this. No one's throwing you out. But at some point, you need to stand on your own feet again, says the son they never stopped supporting. I shot back. Who got Dad's connections for his first job, Mom's down payment help for his house, and now my bedroom for his children? That's enough, Dad thundered. Tomorrow at dinner, decision time. I grabbed an apple from the kitchen counter and headed back to the door. Where are you going? Mom called after me. Anywhere but here, I replied, closing the door behind me. I drove aimlessly again, rain starting to fall harder now, matching my emotional state. The local high school parking lot offered solitude, and I parked in the far corner, watching raindrops race down my windshield as I sobbed. My phone battery dwindled to 15% as I scrolled through social media, torturing myself with images of former colleagues celebrating promotions and friends enjoying stable lives. Kevin had posted photos with his new girlfriend at a concert I'd once mentioned wanting to attend. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. I'd worked so hard to escape Millfield, to build a successful life elsewhere, only to return defeated, and now face rejection from the very place that should have been my safe harbor. With only $30 to my name, until the next freelance payment and a quarter tank of gas, my options were non-existent. I considered calling Kevin, swallowing my pride to ask for a loan, but couldn't bear adding that humiliation to my current state. As evening approached, my phone buzzed with a notification. An email from Rebecca, a former colleague from Bluestream. We'd stayed in loose contact, occasionally commenting on each other's social media posts. I opened it with minimal expectations. Hey Sarah, weird timing but thought of you today. A small marketing agency in Westridge just posted an opening for a content strategist. Not as prestigious as Bluestream, but the owner Amanda seems cool. Starting salary lower than you're used to, but might be a foot in the door? They need someone as soon as possible. Interview link attached if interested. Westridge just 45 minutes from Millfield. Close enough to commute if necessary. I clicked the link with my dying phone battery. The position paid $15,000 less than my Chicago job, but it was legitimate marketing work. The application was straightforward, and the listing mentioned immediate interviews for qualified candidates. With nothing to lose, I completed the application, attached my portfolio, and sent it through just before my phone died completely. I spent the night in my car outside a 24-hour cafe with free Wi-Fi, using their bathroom to freshen up and charging my phone at an outdoor outlet when no employees were looking. At 7 a.m., a response awaited me, an interview request for 10 a.m. that same morning. Fate had offered the smallest lifeline. Whether it would hold remained to be seen. Morning light brought unexpected clarity. After a night sleeping upright in my car, physical discomfort had somehow cleared my mental fog. I washed my face in the cafe bathroom, applied minimal makeup from my purse, and thanked the universe I kept a spare blouse and blazer in my car for unexpected interviews. The drive to Westridge took 40 minutes, the small city gradually appearing on the horizon. Unlike Millfield's quaint but stagnant downtown, Westridge showed signs of growth, new construction, bustling coffee shops, and tech company logos displayed on renovated industrial buildings. Pinnacle Marketing occupied the second floor of a converted warehouse. The space wasn't impressive like Bluestream's glass and chrome Chicago office, but it had character-exposed brick walls, natural light from tall windows, and a collaborative open floor plan. Amanda Nelson, the owner, looked younger than I expected, maybe mid-30s, with cropped dark hair and a no-nonsense demeanor. Your portfolio's impressive, she said after introductions. Bluestream's loss could be our gain. Though I should be up front, we can't match Chicago salaries here. I understand, I replied, determined not to appear desperate. The interview proceeded better than I dared hope. My experience aligned perfectly with their needs, and the small team structure meant broader responsibilities than my specialized role at Bluestream. Amanda and I clicked professionally, sharing similar views on content strategy and client relationships. "When could you start?" she asked as we wrapped up. My heart raced. Immediately. "How immediately?" "Tomorrow," I answered without hesitation, her eyebrows raised. "That's unusually quick. Most candidates need to give notice." I took a risk with honesty. "I've been freelancing since leaving Bluestream. My living situation is changing. A fresh start would be ideal." Something in her expression told me she understood more than I was saying. "We need someone who can hit the ground running," she said thoughtfully. "The position is yours if you want it. Starting Monday, that gives you 3 days to relocate." Joy and terror collided inside me. Employment real. Steady employment, but with an impossible timeline. Where would I live with no savings for a security deposit? How would I move my belongings? "I accept," I heard myself say, pushing my concerns aside. This opportunity was too important to decline. Amanda smiled, extending her hand. "Welcome to Pinnacle. Email our office manager your details, and she'll send the paperwork." I floated back to my car on a strange mixture of elation and panic. Employed again, but homeless still, with relocation necessary within days. The drive back to Millfield felt different. Each mile marked not just distance, but a boundary between my past and potential future. By the time I reached my parents' house, I knew exactly what I needed to do. They were setting the table for dinner when I arrived, the ritualistic Sunday gathering underway. Tyler's car was already in the driveway. "Sarah," Mom exclaimed when I entered. "We've been worried. Are you ready to discuss the arrangements?" The basement door stood ajar, revealing the dusty, unfinished space they'd offered as my new accommodation. A space heater and folding screen had been placed inside their concession to making it livable. Dad emerged from the kitchen, carving knife in hand. "Just in time for dinner. We have matters to settle." Tyler and Jessica sat in the living room, the twins playing on the floor. They looked up expectantly at my arrival. "Yes," I agreed, my voice steadier than it had been in months. "We do have matters to settle." Throughout dinner, conversation remained superficially pleasant, though tension simmered beneath. Everyone avoided the obvious topic, as if delaying the inevitable decision. As Mom served dessert, Dad cleared his throat. "So, Sarah, have you thought about our discussion?" All eyes turned to me. "I have," I replied calmly. "I've decided to leave." Mom's fork clattered against her plate. "The basement arrangement isn't ideal, but—" "I'm not moving to the basement," I interrupted gently. "I'm leaving Millfield entirely. I was offered a marketing position in Westridge today. I've accepted it." Stunned silence followed. "But where will you live?" Mom asked finally. "Westridge is too far to commute. I'll figure it out," I said, with more confidence than I felt. "I start Monday." Dad's expression shifted between surprise and something resembling respect. "That's sudden. But congratulations on the position. You found a marketing job?" Tyler sounded genuinely impressed. "Content strategist at Pinnacle Marketing," I confirmed. "Not as prestigious as Bluestream, but a solid company with growth potential." "When did this happen?" Mom asked, confusion evident. "The interview was this morning. I need to leave by Sunday." "This Sunday? That's impossible," Mom protested. "You can't possibly arrange housing that quickly." "I don't have a choice," I replied simply. "The playroom renovations start Tuesday, remember?" The pointed reminder silenced her. Dad studied me with an unreadable expression. "You're serious about this?" "Completely." "Well then," he said, setting down his napkin, "I suppose we should help you pack." The next 2 hours passed in a strange, emotional blur. I sorted through belongings accumulated over 28 years, making painful decisions about what to keep and what to leave behind. My car could only hold so much, and I had nowhere to store excess. Childhood trophies, high school yearbooks, college textbooks, most would stay behind. Clothes, professional materials, and personal necessities took priority. Mom followed me around the bedroom, occasionally picking up discarded items with a wistful expression. You don't want to take your debate trophies? You were so proud of these. No space, I answered, focusing on efficient packing to avoid the emotions threatening to overwhelm me. You could store things here, she offered hesitantly. In the attic, perhaps. I think it's better to make a clean break. Dad appeared in the doorway with empty boxes from the garage. His earlier anger had subsided, replaced by a quiet resignation. Need help with the heavy lifting? Thank you, I accepted. The first peaceful exchange we'd had in days. By midnight, my car was packed with everything I could fit, the bare essentials of my life condensed into a sedan's trunk and back seat. What remained would stay with my parents or be donated. As I closed the trunk, Mom approached, tears streaming freely now. Sarah, you don't have to leave like this. We can work something out. Mom, we both know this is necessary, I said gently. You need your space back, and I need to stand on my own. But where will you stay tonight? You can't just drive off with nowhere to go. I have arrangements, I lied, unwilling to worry her with the truth that I'd be sleeping in my car again until I figured something out. Dad joined us in the driveway, hands in his pockets. The job's definite? Contract signed? I start Monday, I confirmed. The paperwork's being processed. He nodded, then extended his hand awkwardly. You've always been stubborn. Like me, I guess. I accepted his hand, the closest thing to an apology I'd likely receive. I'll let you know when I'm settled. Mom hugged me tightly, whispering, This will always be your home, no matter what. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I returned her embrace anyway. Tyler appeared on the porch, having put the twins to sleep. He approached cautiously. Need any help with apartment hunting in Westridge? I know some people there through work. I'll manage, I replied, softening slightly at his offer. But thanks. With final goodbyes exchanged, I got into my car and started the engine. The clock on the dashboard read 1:17 a.m. I had no destination, just a direction forward. As I pulled away from my childhood home, I glimpsed my parents in the rearview mirror, standing together in the driveway. Mom leaned against Dad, his arm around her shoulders. They looked smaller somehow, or perhaps I had finally grown larger than the space they'd allocated for me in their lives. I drove through Millfield's silent streets one last time, past the high school where I'd been valedictorian, the park where I'd had my first kiss, the library where I'd dreamed of bigger things. Each landmark receded behind me, becoming memory rather than present reality. With nowhere specific to go, and 2 days before starting my new job, I pointed my car toward Westridge, toward uncertainty. Yes, but also toward possibility. For the first time in 8 months, despite having no home, I felt something like hope. The first night of true homelessness hit differently than the previous nights in my car. Before, it had been an act of defiance, a temporary statement. Now, it was my reality, a car packed with belongings and nowhere to go. I parked in the lot of a 24-hour supermarket in Westridge, positioning my vehicle under a light for safety but away from the main entrance to avoid attention. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by passing cars, security patrols, and the constant fear of being discovered. Dawn brought practical concerns to the forefront. I needed to look presentable for my first day of work, but had no shower access. The solution came in the form of a fitness center, offering 3-day free trials for new members. I signed up, grateful for their clean showers and locker room. Fresh and dressed in my interview clothes, I arrived early at Pinnacle Marketing, determined to make a strong first impression despite my circumstances. Amanda introduced me to the small team, a graphic designer, 2 other content creators, a web developer, and an account manager. They welcomed me warmly, showing me to a desk near the window. We're not corporate, but we get results, Amanda explained as she outlined their current client roster. You'll be handling content strategy for 3 clients initially, with room to grow as you settle in. The work itself was familiar territory, and I threw myself into it gratefully. The structure of employment, the professional conversation, the creative challenges all served as welcome distractions from my housing crisis. At lunch, my new colleagues invited me to join them at a nearby cafe. I declined, claiming I'd brought lunch, then sat in my car calculating expenses. My starting salary would cover basic needs once I received my first paycheck, but that was 2 weeks away. Until then, I had exactly $27.16 to my name. That evening, I drove around Westridge, noting apartment complexes and rental signs. Every inquiry met the same roadblock: application fees I couldn't afford, security deposits equal to first and last month's rent, or income verification requirements I couldn't yet satisfy. The second night in my car was worse than the first. Rain pounded the roof, and condensation fogged the windows. I wiped a small breathing space clear and huddled under my coat, hunger gnawing at my stomach. I'd rationed a granola bar for dinner, saving the remaining one for breakfast. Morning brought new challenges. The fitness center's showers were occupied, forcing me to wait precious minutes. My professional wardrobe consisted of 2 outfits, and I worried colleagues would notice the repetition. Most pressing was my hunger, becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. At work, I maintained my professional facade, contributing to meetings and completing assigned tasks. My desk became a sanctuary, the only space that felt legitimately mine. I stayed late, reluctant to return to my car home. "Burning the midnight oil already?" Amanda asked, stopping by my desk as the office emptied. "Just wanting to make a good impression," I replied, forcing a smile. "Admirable, but pace yourself. This isn't a sprint." By day 3, the strain began showing. Lack of proper sleep left dark circles under my eyes that concealer couldn't hide. My concentration slipped during afternoon meetings. The office refrigerator, stocked with team lunches I pretended not to need, became an object of desperate fascination. Worst was the growing anxiety about being discovered. Each morning, I worried someone might see me emerging from my car with my toiletry bag. Each evening, I drove to different parking lots, fearing security might recognize me from previous nights. On Thursday, disaster struck. Returning to my car after work, I found a security notice on my windshield. "No overnight parking. Vehicles left after midnight will be towed." Panic seized me as I realized I'd exhausted the safe parking options near my workplace. The final indignity came when I tried to start my car and the engine sputtered before catching. The gas gauge hovered just above empty, with payday still 8 days away. That night, I parked behind an abandoned strip mall, fear keeping me alert, until exhaustion finally claimed me around 2 a.m. A police flashlight tapping on my window jolted me awake at 4:30. "Ma'am? Everything okay in there?" Heart pounding, I rolled down the window slightly. "Yes, officer. Just resting before driving home." His flashlight swept over my belongings packed in the back seat. His expression shifted from suspicion to something like pity. "This isn't a safe area to park overnight. You need to move along." "Of course. Thank you, officer." I drove to a 24-hour diner, ordering the cheapest coffee on the menu to justify occupying a booth until dawn. The waitress, noting my disheveled appearance, brought extra creamer packets. Small calories I accepted gratefully. Friday morning, I arrived at the office early, clothes increasingly wrinkled despite my best efforts to smooth them in the fitness center bathroom. Amanda called me into her office before lunch. "Sarah, is everything all right? You seem strained." "Just adjusting to the new position," I deflected. She studied me with uncomfortable perceptiveness. "Your work is excellent so far, but I'm concerned about you personally. You're wearing the same clothes as Tuesday. You look exhausted, and you haven't joined any team lunches." "I'm fine, really," I insisted, mortification burning through me. "Where are you staying in Westridge?" The direct question caught me off guard. "I'm between places at the moment." "Meaning?" Her tone was gentle but persistent. Something in me broke the weight of pretending became too heavy to bear. "I'm living in my car," I admitted, voice barely audible. "My parents converted my room, I started here with no savings, and apartments need deposits I can't afford until payday." Saying it aloud released both shame and relief in equal measure. Amanda's expression remained neutral, free from the pity I dreaded. "How long?" "Since I left Millfield." 5 days. She nodded thoughtfully. "I suspected something when you accepted the position with such immediate availability." My professional facade crumbled. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to bring personal problems into the workplace. If you want to reconsider my employment, stop, she interrupted firmly. Your living situation doesn't affect your qualifications. Your work this week has been excellent despite circumstances that would cripple most people. She reached for a set of keys in her desk drawer. The building owner recently renovated the storage room above our office. There's a futon, bathroom, and kitchenette. It's meant for visiting clients, but it's empty for the next 2 weeks. She slid the keys across the desk. It's not a permanent solution, but it'll give you time until your first paycheck. I stared at the keys, unable to comprehend this unexpected kindness. I can't accept. You can and you will, she stated matter-of-factly. Consider it an investment in a valuable team member. Practical compensation for the overtime you've been working. Tears threatened, but I held them back. Thank you. I don't know what to say. Say you'll get some proper sleep tonight. She stood, signaling the end of our conversation. And Sarah? This stays between us. Your circumstances don't define your capability. That evening, I climbed the narrow stairs to the room above the office. The space was small but clean, a futon with fresh linens, a compact bathroom with shower, and a kitchenette with microwave and mini-fridge. The window overlooked Westridge's main street, lights twinkling as evening settled. For the first time in nearly a week, I showered without rushing, wearing the building's complimentary bathrobe while washing my clothes in the sink. The futon felt impossibly luxurious after nights confined to my car's driver's seat. As I drifted towards sleep, I realized something unexpected in reaching absolute rock bottom. I'd discovered my own resilience and encountered kindness I never anticipated. The text from my mother remained unanswered on my phone. Whatever reconciliation might come would happen on my terms, from a position of growing strength rather than desperate dependence. 2 weeks in the room above Pinnacle Marketing allowed me to regain my footing. With Amanda's discreet support and my first paycheck, I began reassembling the building blocks of independent life. The small storage space became a temporary haven. I established routines, morning coffee from the kitchenette, professional clothes hanging neatly on a makeshift rack. Evenings spent researching affordable housing options. For the first time since leaving Chicago, I felt a sense of control returning. My work performance flourished without the constant stress of homelessness. Projects for our retail clients received positive feedback, and I began developing a comprehensive content calendar that impressed even our most demanding client. Your strategy for the Harrington account is exactly what they've been requesting for months, Amanda noted during our weekly check-in. They specifically mentioned your detailed approach to their pain points. This professional validation healed something inside me that the family rejection had damaged. Here, my contributions mattered. My skills had value. My presence was wanted. The apartment search continued to present challenges, but with steady income, possibilities emerged. I discovered a listing for a shared house with 2 roommates needed. The location wasn't ideal, a 20-minute drive from the office in an older neighborhood, but the rent was manageable, and they needed only first month's rent up front rather than the standard security deposit. Jasmine Pierce and Derek Winters had both recently relocated to Westridge themselves. Jasmine, a nurse at the community hospital, and Derek, a music teacher at the local high school. They showed me around the modest but clean 3-bedroom house with obvious pride. The previous roommate left suddenly, Jasmine explained. We need someone reliable, more than we need the security deposit right now. The bedroom was small but included a desk and dresser. A window overlooked a backyard with a massive oak tree. It wasn't luxury, but it was legitimate housing with reasonable people. I'll take it, I said, relief flooding through me. Moving in required only a single carload from my temporary accommodations above the office. Jasmine helped carry my meager belongings up the stairs, chatting easily about neighborhood highlights. There's a farmer's market on Saturdays, she mentioned, and we do Sunday dinner together when our schedules align. No pressure to join, but you're always welcome. The phrase Sunday dinner triggered a pang of homesickness I hadn't expected. For all its complications, family dinner had been a constant in my life until recently. That sounds nice, I replied, pushing the comparison aside. The first few weeks of cohabitation involved careful navigation of shared spaces and schedules. I kept to myself initially, still carrying the emotional bruising of family rejection. But Jasmine's persistent friendliness and Derek's laid-back humor gradually drew me out. One Sunday evening, I joined them for dinner, a simple pasta dish Derek had prepared. The casual conversation and easy laughter created an atmosphere entirely different from the tension-filled family dinners of recent months. "So what brought you to Westridge?" Derek asked between bites of garlic bread. I hesitated, unsure how much to share. "Career opportunity, fresh start. Best reasons?" He nodded. "I came for the teaching position but stayed for the community vibe. Small enough to matter, big enough to disappear when you want to." Jasmine raised her glass of cheap wine. "To fresh starts and finding your people." Something about her words resonated deeply. Finding your people, not being assigned them by birth or circumstance, but discovering connections that nourished rather than depleted. Work continued to provide stability and growth. Amanda called me into her office 1 month after my start date. "The Harrington account has requested you specifically for their new product launch. They're increasing their retainer, which means we can adjust your compensation accordingly." The raise wasn't substantial, but it represented recognition of my value, something my family had failed to provide. I channeled the additional income into rebuilding my emergency fund, determined never to be financially vulnerable again. As weeks passed, my confidence returned through small victories. Opening a new savings account, purchasing a professional wardrobe from thrift stores, contributing recipes to the house's shared meal rotation. Each step restored pieces of self-worth that had been systematically dismantled. The camaraderie with my roommates deepened through shared experiences. When Derek's car broke down, I drove him to school for a week. When I caught the flu, Jasmine brought home soup from the hospital cafeteria. These simple kindnesses created a support system I hadn't expected to find among strangers. Our Sunday dinners became a tradition I looked forward to rather than dreaded. One evening, after a particularly satisfying meal, Jasmine suggested we share our victory of the week. "Mine's small," Derek offered. "A student who's been struggling finally mastered the piece she's been practicing all semester. The patient I've been worried about got good news today," Jasmine shared. "His treatment is working." When they looked to me, I surprised myself with my answer. "I didn't answer my mother's call yesterday," I admitted. Not because I was angry, but because I was busy living my life and decided to call back on my schedule instead of dropping everything for family approval. They clinked glasses with mine, understanding the significance without needing detailed explanation. The professional growth continued as I settled into my role at Pinnacle. Amanda increasingly trusted me with client presentations and strategy development. My portfolio expanded with successful campaigns that demonstrated my capabilities. "The executive team at Meridian wants to take us to dinner next week," Amanda announced one afternoon. "They specifically requested you attend since you've been handling their content strategy." Sitting across from C-suite executives at a restaurant I once couldn't have afforded to enter, confidently discussing marketing strategies I'd developed, I felt the final pieces of my professional identity lock back into place. These people valued my insights, respected my expertise, and treated me as an equal contributor. "Your recommendation for targeting the millennial demographic was spot on," Meridian's marketing director commented. "The engagement metrics exceeded our projections." 6 months after the family dinner that had upended my life, I stood in my bedroom at the shared house, sorting through accumulated mail. Among the bills and advertisements sat a cream-colored envelope with my parents' return address. Inside was a holiday card with a family photo, my parents, Tyler, Jessica, and the twins arranged in coordinated outfits before a Christmas tree. The handwritten note read simply, "We miss you at Sunday dinners. Love, Mom and Dad." Years earlier, such a note would have sent me spiraling into guilt and obligation. Now, I placed it on my dresser without emotional turmoil. I could acknowledge the sentiment without being controlled by it. I could love my family while maintaining the boundaries their actions had made necessary. That evening, I joined Jasmine and Derek in our small living room, contributing homemade apple crisp to our Sunday dinner spread. "Victory of the week?" Jasmine prompted, continuing our tradition. I smiled, finding the answer with surprising clarity. I realized today that rock bottom became my foundation. 6 months expanded into 8, then a full year in Westridge. The shared house with Jasmine and Derek had become a genuine home rather than just emergency accommodation. My tiny bedroom gradually accumulated personal touches, framed artwork from local artists, a comfortable reading chair found at a yard sale, shelves lined with marketing books and novels alike. My position at Pinnacle Marketing had solidified into Associate Director of Content Strategy, with a team of 2 junior writers reporting to me. The promotion had come with another modest raise, allowing me to establish a proper emergency fund, 6 months of expenses saved in a high-yield account. Never again would I be financially vulnerable to family whims. In October, an email arrived from my mother with the subject line Thanksgiving plans. Their annual gathering would include the usual suspects, Aunt Barbara, Uncle Jim, Tyler's family. We'd love to have you join us, she wrote. Your room is available if you'd like to stay overnight. The phrasing caught my attention. Not your old room or the guest room, but your room. I wondered what had become of the grandchildren's playroom plans. After careful consideration, I responded that I would attend for dinner but would not be staying overnight. The boundary felt important to maintain. I could visit without reverting to dependence. The drive to Millfield on Thanksgiving morning felt surreal. The familiar landscape triggered memories both comforting and painful. Main Street had changed little, though a new coffee shop had replaced the old hardware store. My parents' house looked exactly as I remembered. Mom opened the door before I could knock, enveloping me in a hug that conveyed everything words couldn't. You look wonderful, she said, stepping back to examine me. So professional. Dad appeared in the hallway behind her, his demeanor more reserved but eyes warm. Good to see you, Sarah. The house smelled of roasting turkey and pumpkin pie, sense of childhood and belonging. As Mom led me to the living room where others had gathered, I braced myself for potential awkwardness. Tyler stood to greet me, his handshake firm. The marketing career seems to be working out. It is, I confirmed. How's insurance? Steady as ever. Regional director now. Jessica offered a stilted hello, the twins hiding behind her legs, too shy to remember a long-absent aunt. The conversation remained carefully superficial through appetizers, town gossip, weather patterns, safe topics that avoided our last explosive encounter. During a lull before dinner, curiosity got the better of me. I thought my old room was being converted to a playroom. An uncomfortable silence fell. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. We reconsidered, Dad finally said. The basement worked better for the kids' toys. More space. I nodded, understanding the unspoken truth my absence had made them reconsider more than just room allocations. Would you like to see your room? Mom offered hesitantly. We've kept it ready. I followed her upstairs, noticing family photos along the stairwell, including recent ones of me at college graduation and my Chicago apartment, times before the rift. My bedroom door stood closed, just as it always had. When Mom opened it, I was struck by both familiarity and difference. The space remained recognizably my childhood room, but subtle changes acknowledged my adulthood. The twin bed had been replaced with a queen. The college pennants and posters had been removed, walls now a neutral gray rather than teenage purple. A small desk in the corner held a reading lamp and notepad. We thought you might visit sometimes, Mom explained, voice thick with emotion. When you're ready, the gesture contained both apology and hope, an acknowledgement of past mistakes and desire for future connection. It's lovely, I said simply. Dinner proved less tense than anticipated. The shared ritual of passing dishes and complimenting the cooking created a temporary normalcy. I answered questions about Westridge and Pinnacle Marketing, careful to present my new life as chosen rather than forced upon me. Amanda, my boss, has become a wonderful mentor, I explained. She's teaching me about business ownership and client relationships beyond just marketing strategy. You always were a quick study, Dad commented, the closest thing to praise he'd offered in years. As dessert was served, Tyler surprised me by raising his glass, to Sarah forging her own path. The simple acknowledgement of my journey brought unexpected emotion. These people knew me at my lowest point, yet now recognized my recovery and growth. After dinner, while others watched football, Dad found me alone in the kitchen. "I handled things poorly," he said without preamble. "That last dinner before you left." Coming from a man who rarely admitted mistakes, this represented significant effort. "We both said things we regret," I offered, extending an olive branch. "I was wrong about you not trying hard enough," he continued. "The economy's been tough. Tyler had advantages, my connections, timing, location." This acknowledgement of the uneven playing field between siblings healed something I hadn't realized was still wounded. "Thank you for saying that. Your mother misses you terribly," he added. "We both do." "I miss aspects of home too," I admitted. "But Westridge has been good for me. I've built something there, something separate from us," he nodded, understanding. "That's as it should be, I suppose." As evening approached, I prepared to leave, thanking my mother for dinner and promising to call more regularly. The goodbye lacked the finality of my departure a year earlier. This was a chosen departure rather than a forced exile. "You'll come for Christmas?" Mom asked hopefully. "For dinner," I agreed. "I have commitments with friends in Westridge for the holiday weekend." The term friends clearly surprised them, a reminder that my life had expanded beyond family connections. Driving back to Westridge that night, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The crisis that had seemed like destruction had actually been transformation. Being pushed from the nest, however, brutally, had forced me to fly rather than continue comfortable dependence. Arriving home, I found Jasmine and Derek watching a movie with a plate of leftovers saved for me. "How was family Thanksgiving?" Jasmine asked, making room on the couch. "Surprisingly healing," I admitted, joining them. "But I'm glad to be home." The word home felt right, this place I'd chosen. These people who'd supported me without obligation. This life built from necessity and determination, rather than inheritance and expectation. The next morning, I woke early to volunteer at the community center's holiday meal drive, something I'd committed to weeks earlier. Sorting canned goods alongside other Westridge residents, I felt the interconnection of community, the belonging that comes from contribution rather than mere proximity. The journey from that fateful family dinner ultimatum to present stability had been neither straightforward nor easy. Homelessness, hunger, and humiliation had marked the path. But so had kindness from unexpected sources, strength I hadn't known I possessed, and independence sweeter for being hard-won. I'd chosen to leave, rather than diminish myself to maintain false security. That choice, terrifying at the time, had become the foundation upon which I'd rebuilt, not just circumstances, but identity. The room I'd been ordered to surrender had been replaced by spaces I truly owned: my office at Pinnacle, my bedroom in the shared house, my place in a community that valued contribution over conformity. The family that had issued ultimatums had been supplemented by connections formed through authentic sharing rather than blood obligation. In losing what I thought I needed, I discovered what I truly required: dignity, agency, and the courage to stand alone when necessary. Have you ever faced a moment when choosing yourself meant losing something you thought was essential? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more journeys of resilience and growth. Your support helps this channel continue sharing stories that remind us all sometimes our greatest strengths emerge when we're forced to leave our comfort zones behind. Thank you for watching, and remember, rock bottom isn't always an ending. Sometimes, it's the foundation for something stronger than before.